Okay, so one of the issues is with proportional symbol mapping and graduated symbol mapping is actually that sometimes we don't just want to use geometric shapes, but we actually want to use pictographic symbols. So, let's say that this is my map and, I haven't put a scale bar or a title or anything or a legend in here, but let's just call this good. You can tell that certain parts of Europe have less people living in an individual household than in other places, because that's the variable that I've been mapping as an example for this lab. However, let's say that I wanted to really emphasize this, and I wanted to make these proportional symbols, instead of them being hexagons or circles or squares or whatever, I actually wanted to make them into a pictographic symbol of a house. Well, luckily ArcMap has that capability, and it actually has a lot of options built in. So to get to those options, you want to double click or the layer that you want to use, national units or NUTSO as it is if you haven't renamed it yet. And you can either double click it or go right click and go to properties, and you want to go to this template area. Now you'll notice the standard templates, they're pretty boring. But you have this more symbols option here, and you can add in a large variety of symbols. And I would not spend hours and hours figuring this out, but maybe you want to add something a little whatever interesting, and so you add a different symbol level, and it'll add it to the bottom here. So you might have to scroll down and then kind of scroll around to find something. But let's say that I find a relatively simple symbol of a house, like this. And that becomes my template, and it actually just applies it right to my classification scheme. And it's pretty much as simple as that to change my map. Now, you got to be careful. Sometimes these symbols they're all black. There's no line around the edge, but you can actually add one by duplicating this symbol. And we'll come. Let's see here. You want to hit copy and then paste, and you want to make one of these symbols a little smaller. Maybe we make it or maybe, let's see, we want to either make one of the internal symbols white, alright, and make it a little smaller, next size down so there's a black edge, or maybe we make the external symbol white and we make it 36 points in size and move it to the bottom, and maybe we make it more like 38 points in size. And what that does is it adds a little white line around the edge so that when we map these we can actually differentiate them from the other. So it's just an idea. What I wouldn't do if I were you is go in here and go hog wild with these 3D symbols, and I'll show you why. It's still adding them here. For one, when you start making your map, ArcMap's going to freak out and take a long time. For two, if you start adding all kinds of 3D home symbols, initially it might look pretty cool, but you realize it's pretty hard to differentiate them from each other here, and it makes your size range even more difficult to deal with. Not only that, but you go and you insert a legend here, and that gets relatively confusing as well, just because you got all of these replicated pictures. It's just a little sloppy. So use them if you want, but use them with care, and definitely don't go in and do something like use 3D buildings here and add in skyscrapers, which you can do. It's kind of funny. As we've talked about, there's all kinds of ways to make a really ugly map, and ArcMaps are really handy that way. But this doesn't mean that much, and it takes up a lot of space. Looks pretty ugly. So just a tip on using pictographic symbols.